So, some general teaching techniques and tips. Inspire and save with thrift stores. How many of you love thrift stores? I'm not surprised. How many of you despise thrift stores? Okay, good. No one. I mean, well, okay, sorry. So I've got two main collections that I'm really proud of. More than that, but two big ones I want to talk about right now. The first one is my Beanie Baby collection. So every grade 1 and 2 teacher should take advantage of the hype around Beanie Babies like 15 or 20 years ago, and everybody bought those little stuffed animals, and they're gonna be like the next major profit maker. Like, you could buy all these collectibles, and then the market tanked, and everybody sent them to thrift stores, and now you can go along and buy them for like 50 cents. So, what I have here in my hockey bag is my collection of Beanie Babies, and I've got about, I'll start showing you here. There's, it's been over a couple of years I collected them. There's the last count, I think there was 241 of them, and they all are different. I mean, there's some same animals, but there's some different ones still. Like, if there's different penguins, all penguins, but they look different. Almost done. Yeah, I thought it was. Even an American one, even though I'm Canadian. There you go. And almost done. A few little ones left. There we go. So afterwards, you're welcome to take a look at these. I would love to share them, but they're special to me. In general terms, some things I do with those is they're fun for the kids. Indoor recess, if you can't get out for recess for some reason, they'd build pet stores with them. They would fight over them. It was great. But more than fun, a story about a young girl who was in my class. I think it was grade 2. She came from a very troubled home. And she was in my class, and she had a really hard time trusting. It was obvious. Like, you could tell that these walls were up. Until the day I brought in my collection of Beanie Babies. I was teaching at a different school at the time, so my collection wasn't permanent there, but I got my collection of Beanie Babies, took her to the class, and that day, that girl changed. Suddenly, she had this to trust, and after that, our relationship was so much stronger. There's something about these things for young children, like, they're amazing. Like, you probably all, like, there's therapeutic just holding them. Like, the little beads inside, they're amazing. So, for just a simple fact of creating an exciting environment is amazing. I have so many pets in my classroom, like real pets. I've got like birds and a fish and a lizard and a chinchilla, and I'm hoping to get another critter this year. So I have real pets too, which all does the same thing. But children are going to love these wonderful things. I also use them for some more educational purposes, which we'll get into that later on. But I use them for rewards too, like a whole bunch of them. So I put about maybe 100 of them out to start with at the beginning of the year. And then if they earn a certain reward, we get a new Beanie Baby in the collection. Oh, it's so exciting. They each take a turn holding it, and then it goes in the collection, and then it motivates them for various things, which I'll talk about shortly. The other thing I collected is children's books. I have about 2,000 children's books. And then I stopped teaching grade 1 and 2. So some other teachers got some books. Again, thrift stores. There are literally thousands and thousands of dollars worth of books there for a fraction of the price. And because they're cheap, because I paid 50 cents or $1 for a book, or nothing free for that matter, I would encourage the kids to borrow them, take them home. Not wreck them on purpose, but if they get wrecked because your little sister scribbles in the book, well, too bad, but it wasn't a loss to me. Promoting a love for learning by just getting books out of their homes. I did a number system where I had all my books, the titles, and a number on my computer, and then I wrote the number inside each book, because watching grade 1 and 2 students try to sign out books on a piece of paper, like they'd write the title, and they got the author and the summary of the book and everything when it's supposed to be just signing out the title. It's a disaster. So instead I numbered each book so they could write their name and the number of the book they're borrowing, and that way I could keep track of who borrowed what book. I also like with these books, I like to have what's called literary class once a week. I still do it in grade 5 and 6, which is kind of comical. because they love it. It's like the highlight of the week. So once, what I do is I take a picture, like whatever book I have, whatever the picture book is, I take pictures of it, and then I put it up on the projector, and I read the story to the class. And it can be like little kids' books. And these grade 5 and 6 students are just sitting there just drinking it in, and they love it. So grade 1 and 2, same thing. Once a week, and we talk about the book, do an activity with it, or just enjoy the pleasure of reading a book together. For no good reason other than reading is a great thing to do. And developing a passion and a love for reading, passion for books is amazing. It's a kind of the literary class period for me each week was kind of just that, turn things off and just relax. No pressure, you will not be tested on this. There's nothing. And children love that. Even adults do, for that matter, if you're honest. Use rewards wisely in your teaching. The last number of years, I've changed my methods to try to encourage success for each child, whatever that looks like. So I look back in the grade book, and whenever I mark their tests, and if they got a score equal or better than the previous test or quiz in that particular subject, then they get a sticker. So maybe one student got 70, and now they got 100, and they both get a sticker, and they love it. Small thing. Stickers are really boring when you go to the dollar store and buy like the great work or like this kind of thing. It's like, you're the best, you're amazing, and like, what? You can't all be the best. So what I do instead is I go to like dollar stores and thrift stores, again, and buy these activity books. And that, like, sometimes if you're lucky, they'll have like stickers in the book, and then you rip out the stickers and throw the book in the garbage, or else let the kids scribble in it if they want, or whatever they want to do. And then I got this pack of very unique stickers. You never know what you're going to get sometimes. And the kids love it. It brings so much more life. It's little sparkles of joy in the day. Entertain and teach with costumes. So when I taught the CH, the sound, the ch sound, I always try to bring something in for each sound, like a Beanie Baby or whatever it might be. I try to bring in. So the kids love when the teacher does things random creations and things. So of course they're going to love if their teacher walks out of the room and comes back dressed as a chicken. So I haven't worn this thing in ages. So what I would do is I would get this white blanket, and I would like wear this white blanket. I had these yellow rubber gloves on my feet, like brum, 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 like little chicken feet, and I come walking in looking like a chicken, and it's not very comfortable. They loved it, and then of course they want to wear the chicken hat and all that good stuff. Just anything to try to just get a bit of life and a bit of memorable experiences happening. I've collected a number of costumes. I have what's this? Oh, hot dog. A bottle of ketchup, mustard, hot sauce. I think so. What's this? I'm not sure what that is. Is that hot pepper, maybe? I haven't looked at these things in ages. A banana. Oh. What's this? Oh, there's a ketchup bottle. Some bacon. Everyone loves bacon. Hamburger. Taco. Gotta use your imagination sometimes. A soda cracker. That's random. Anyhow, the possibilities are endless for all ages, but grade 1 and 2, whatever. What you can do with costumes. I will demonstrate later on, hopefully we'll have some time for that, something I like to do with one of my costumes. If you watch after Halloween, you can get some really good deals on costumes. I think some of these were like 90 or 95% off, because like the store was desperate to get rid of them. Don't blame them. But anyhow, they're probably trying to get rid of them, so it's like a couple bucks versus like $30 or $40 like they usually are. So you can grab a bunch of cheap costumes. It's great fun. Next point, I don't have much to say about, draw attention with visuals. I love the power of video in my class, and that every school is going to be different. There's different standards for that. But when I have a little educational 2-minute video can bring the class to life so much. Showing pictures or videos of about anything will draw the students' attention in. Tell stories. I'm not much of a storyteller, but my students forgive me and listen anyhow. And they're like, so have I told you the story about, and their eyes light up. And then I tell them the story I told them 3 times before, probably. And they're like, oh yeah, we've heard that one already. But anyhow, they love stories, especially personal stories about your life. Now, I'm not a very private person, as you may have guessed. Some people are, and that's fine. But if you're willing to share stories from your life, kids of all ages will love that. And it just draws them in amazingly well. And when you're telling a story, again, be alive, be expressive, make it come to life. Catch and keep attention with lesson hooks. Now, if you're like me and teaching when I taught grade 1 and 2, taught in a multi-grade classroom, it was not realistic to try to have an amazing lesson plan prepared every day with a perfect lesson hook every day for every class. No, I won't try to fool anyone because you're all experienced. You know I'm lying if I say you can. So, but it's fun to try to bring in, whenever possible, try to bring something in to wake the students up from their slumber. Like if you say, all right, class, open your book to page 87. We're going to be learning about the moon today. They're going to be like, all right, excited. No, they probably won't be. But if you start off with a simple question like, have you ever gone on a big road trip with your family? And then, of course, they're going to tell you 500,000 stories about their road trips, and you will shut them down in a dignified way. And then you think, well, those are some really long trips. But did you realize that if you were able to drive your car up in the air to the moon, it would take 160 days of driving and no stops, no restroom breaks, no food breaks, no get out and stretch your legs breaks, nothing. Just straight driving, you and your family, for 160 days. That's like all of school, never stopping for weekends or anything. That's crazy. Now open your books and to page whatever it is, and we're going to learn some more exciting stuff about the moon, because that's how far it is to get to the moon. That's how long it would take for you to get there. And suddenly your students are like, whoa, rather than falling asleep. Learn from your mistakes and help your students learn from their mistakes. I have a procedure when I talk grade 1 and 2 for marking corrections. So I'm going to try to lay it out here. It's very basic, but I'm afraid I'm going to make it confusing. So let's say that we have a student, their workbook, a basic math question. So they would, of course, the students are perfect at math, and they put 5, 5, and 5. And then you come along, and so that's the work for the day. In the evening, I come along and I mark it. So I go like, no, and no, and no. So there's 5, there's 3 X's, of course, because those are all wrong, I think. Good, yes they are. So there's 3 X's. And then I give it their work back the next day. Ideally, whenever possible, I tried to mark on the spot with them. Immediate feedback was the most effective way. If not able to do that, this is the technique that worked next best for me. So I would go through and I'd hand their work back. The next day they would come in the morning before school. Often they would come and start on their corrections before the opening bell rang. Then they would come and they'd come, oh yeah, this one's 4 and this one is 7, and then they run off and play and forget to do this one, of course. So that evening, when I finally get a chance to look at their corrections again, I come through and I say, okay, this is good. So I'd circle saying it's correct. This one I can clearly see they tried. It's still not right, so I'm not going to do anything with that one. This one, they completely skipped. Now, when I taught grade 1 and 2, what I cared about is not that they had the right answer, but that they tried to get the right answer. They at least tried it. So what I do is if I saw even one question in that subject that they did not even try the correction, they totally skipped it or missed it, I would write their name on a piece of paper along with the subject that mistake was in. The next day when they came to school, they had this paper on their desk, and that meant that they had to do all their corrections in that subject and have me check them before they could do anything else that day, like if they're done their work, before they could whatever free time activities they usually did. Before they could do any of that, they had to do all their corrections in that subject. It was not a punishment, it was a procedure. And it was amazing to see with time how that made a difference, that they worked harder the first time and that they tried to do get all the mistakes. Again, it's not a punishment. It wasn't like, oh, you awful person. I never make mistakes. No, we all miss things, but just to help raise that awareness for doing it carefully the first time. And then, if there were few enough students each day, I had set the standard, few enough subjects for the whole day of all the students combined that they at least tried their corrections, there'd be a reward the next day, for example, a new Beanie Baby or something. And they thought that was great. And I had way too many books to put in my library, so if they were lucky, they get a book and a Beanie Baby in the same day, a new book. And they thought that was amazing. So just a simple way to hold them accountable. And I can explain that more. I'm kind of rushed for time, so if you want to learn more about that, I can explain that later. Then once a week, what I do is I would put on my ketchup costume, wherever it is. There it is. I would put this thing on, and we had ketchup period. We would ketchup on our corrections. So I would put on my ketchup costume, which I'll do for you now. And I would sit at my desk, and they would all do their corrections, and it kind of turned into a race. They would try to get the corrections done as fast as possible. They'd bring them to my desk. I would mark them, and I'd write down a paper every time they were finished. I'd cross off on a paper every subject they were done, and they'd turn into a race to see who could get the corrections caught up first. To be honest, it sounds glamorous. I usually get frustrated and upset during the process because it was high energy, high maintenance, like we had half an hour to get this done, and the ketchup costume helped a little bit to calm everybody down. But it was not a pleasant. But when it's all said and done, be like, we're done, and that feeling of all our corrections are caught up for the week. We have a clean slate going forward, and it was wonderful. You don't have to wear a ketchup bottle for that, but it does help. Review regularly. Obviously, this is not new to you. But I was curious, what are some favorite methods that you have for reviewing? Let's just talk together here a bit.
For sight words, we had this little game where I would write each sight word on a popsicle stick and have them in a little bucket, and they would pull it out, read it, put it back. But there were 2 or 3 in there that said, oh snap. And if it said, oh snap, then you had to put all of yours back in. And so you didn't want to pull that one, but the first person to get 5 popsicle sticks in their hand would win the game. And depending on if you pulled oh snap too many times, the game could go for a long time, and we would just die laughing. We had so much fun with that game.
Excellent. That's a case of controlled educational fun. Great example. Yeah, anyone else? Some of the ones I always like doing, Round the World, the classic game, Round the World. Some of those good old-fashioned ones, they might be as old as the hills for you, but these children are just little. They've never heard of these wonderful things before. So some of these old classic games. One is called Kick Out the King. I forget what it was actually called. I think I had to renovate the name a little bit. Like, they stand in a line, we do flashcards, and then if they get it right, they get to move up the line, and if they get it wrong, they get bumped to the bottom, and it's great fun. Just any of those things. Take control. Take control of the curriculum, that is. Not maybe other areas, but take control. One thing that always bothers me, and I'm speaking to a group of experienced teachers here, so I can say it without too much fear, because I don't like teachers at my school. I don't like telling them this as much when it's their first or second year, but the curriculum is your guide. The teacher's guide is your guide. It's not a master. So when a teacher is just by the book, following everything, well, it said we had to do this, now we have to do this now. For the sake of your students and your own sanity, if you're able to, be creative. Skip work, skip or add quizzes, tests, and other activities. Because if a student is learning, they have been successful. Even if you didn't quite get the whole lesson done, really, if they learned, they were successful. But as a principal, I do encourage you to speak, before you do anything too radical, you speak with your leaders in your school and make sure that they're on board with that. But my pastor at my church, he said one time, a number of years ago, he told me, the 7 dying words of any organization is, we've never done it that way before. The 7 dying words of any organization is, we've never done it that way before. And the same for a student. How many times is the student being not successful? How many times is the foundation being built poorly and weakly because we've never done it that way before. We can't try that in for students. No, that would much of that would work. Maybe it's worth trying something new sometimes.